Duke Ian Campbell's wife had a secret locked drawer in her home. When he finally broke into it, the contents shocked him and the world. Ian Douglas Campbell was born in June of 1903 in Paris, France. His father was Douglas Walter Campbell, a member of the Scottish clan Campbell. His mother, American, Amy Marie Suzanne Lawrence. Even though Ian Campbell had close ties to nobility, it didn't look like he was going to be living the life of an aristocrat, at least not a rich one. Campbell grew up mostly between France and America. He attended school in Milton, Massachusetts, and grew up speaking both French and English. He later attended Christ Church, Oxford. At this point, Ian Campbell was a long way from the scandalizing tabloid headlines of his midlife. There aren't many records of his youth, but given his later money troubles, I doubt that he excelled at math. Casinos are a great place to get lucky and score big, even if it's not at the slot machines. Campbell, for example, was unlucky with the cards, but he had a different kind of ace up his sleeve. While busy gambling his fortune away, Campbell met Janet Gladys Akin, a British-Canadian socialite at a casino in France, and this might have been the moment he hit the jackpot. Early on, Campbell developed a reputation as a man who likes to take risks. Of course, most of those risks never paid off. Everyone in the aristocratic circles that Campbell traveled in knew that he was a gambler. He just wasn't a very lucky one. But that didn't stop Akin from taking her chances with the French-born Scotsman. She had no clue what she was getting herself into. Campbell and Akin decided to roll the dice in the game of love and try their luck in marriage. The couple got married in 1927 and quickly had a daughter together, Lady Jean Campbell. But if Akin had been hoping for a high roller, she ended up with a pair of snake eyes instead. Ian Campbell was not the man she had hoped for. Even though Campbell came from a noble-ish family, he didn't have much to offer Akin. But Akin had lots to offer Campbell. Her father was Max Akin, 1st Baron of Beaverbrook. As a newspaper publisher, he was a kingmaker with money to burn, and burn it Campbell did. He used his wife's money to support his lavish lifestyle until there wasn't much money left. The details are unclear, but at some point, Akin must have clued into the fact that her husband was taking her for a ride, and not the fun kind like at an amusement park. The couple divorced in 1934 after 7 years of a less than blissful marriage. Turns out Campbell's extravagances were the least of his faults. Allegedly, Campbell didn't exactly show appreciation for his wife's financial support. In fact, it was quite the opposite. There's not much evidence to go on except gossip, but Akin claimed that Campbell was physically aggressive towards her and drank enough to drown a fish. In the coming years, more evidence would emerge that she was right on the money. Even if Campbell was a less than honorable husband to Akin, he was a dedicated father to their daughter. Akin returned to Canada after their marriage and essentially abandoned Jean. Campbell had to raise her almost on his own. Of course, he wouldn't be alone for much longer. With his sugar mama gone, those bills weren't going to pay themselves. Campbell was on the lookout for his next partner. Campbell didn't have much time to spare in finding another bank machine, aka wife. Shortly after his marriage to Akin ended, he knew he needed another major payday or he was in serious trouble, so he scouted out another unsuspecting woman. In fact, there was even some speculation that Campbell might have had his next victim lined up before his marital bed was cold. In 1935, less than a full year after his marriage ended, Campbell married Louise Hollingsworth Morris Cluse, and she didn't have 3 surnames for fun. As the descendant of a US president, a wealthy investment banker, and a famous artist, she was an American socialite of the highest pedigree, with the bank account to match. But she had never faced anything like Ian Campbell before. Campbell and Louise's marriage struck many of their friends and acquaintances as a rather rushed affair, and affair might have been the right word to use. In addition to the rumors of his physical aggression, people speculated that Campbell had been unfaithful in his first marriage. Adultery, it seemed, was the least of his concerns. Campbell was among the first to sign up at the outbreak of World War II. The 37-year-old French-born Scotsman joined the 8th Battalion Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders and quickly attained the rank of captain. But if he thought that his noble peerage would spare him from the horrors and atrocities of World War II, he was wrong. So very wrong. Despite his family connections and the fortune that he married to, Campbell was on the front lines of World War II. He saw and participated in active combat during the fall of France, but despite his best efforts, he and surviving members of his unit surrendered to the dreaded Wehrmacht. That was just the beginning of his nightmare. Campbell remained a prisoner until the end of World War II. The records of what he had to endure to survive are scarce, but we know one thing. No amount of money was going to save him. He was one of 80,000 prisoners to take part in the grueling Great March West. Even as a prisoner of the Wehrmacht, Campbell's second wife Louise never abandoned him. While her husband fought off the Germans, she crossed the Pyrenees mountain range into Lisbon. She then focused her efforts on providing relief for prisoners like her husband. But if she'd known what lay ahead, she might have left him there. Campbell only barely managed to survive the hardships of World War II. He endured nearly 5 years as a prisoner. When he returned home to Scotland, he was a changed man, and not for the better. Once a robust man, he had turned frail and sickly, but as the old saying goes, the more things change, the more they stay the same, like Campbell's insatiable desire for money. Shortly after World War II ended, it looks like Campbell's luck had finally changed for the better. In 1949, his cousin, the 10th Duke of Argyll, passed away without an heir. All of a sudden, Campbell inherited the title of Duke of Argyll and Chief of Clan Campbell. He also inherited a potential fortune, if he could just find it. The title of Duke of Argyll wasn't the only thing that Campbell inherited. He managed to snag a castle along with it. One English writer and cultural figure described the massive property as ugly, grim, and forbidding. Once Campbell took possession, things only got worse. Apparently, ugly, grim, and forbidding translates to extremely expensive to maintain. Inverary Castle was in a poor state when Campbell inherited it. To worsen the matter, a terrible fire broke out in 1950 and gutted it. But that didn't mean it didn't have potential. In fact, one could say that it was worth a fortune, and no one liked a fortune more than Ian Campbell. As a new Duke of Argyll, Campbell finally got the fortune he had always wanted. There was just one small caveat. Legend told of a Spanish galleon laden with treasure sitting at the bottom of Tobermory Bay. If it was the last thing he did, Campbell vowed to find that treasure. Campbell planned to dredge Tobermory Bay and dig up the legendary Spanish treasure. Rumors estimated the buried booty was worth 30 million of money. That's Old English for more money than God. Despite his best efforts, however, Campbell only ever managed to find little trinkets. But he still had his cash cow. For now. Just because he didn't find his buried treasure didn't mean that Campbell wasn't living like a duke. If he followed his treasure map, it would have led him right back to his wife, Louise. He continued spending her money like it was going out of style, repairing his castle. Plus, he had other more clandestine expenses. When he wasn't diving for Spanish doubloons in Tobermory Bay or rolling the dice at the casino, Campbell was busy cheating on Louise. The penniless Duke of Argyll had started a secret romance with his longtime friend Margaret Wigham. Unlike his buried treasure, however, his affair wouldn't stay hidden for long, but it would sink like a ton of bricks. Louise learned about Campbell's affair with Wigham. After all, she held the purse strings. The scorned Duchess of Argyll lost her last nerve and penny with her spendthrift, treasure-hunting husband. She filed for divorce. She cited infidelity and adultery as the reason, but she could have just as easily have cited anything else. What was the dirty Duke going to do now? Campbell and his mistress Wigham didn't waste any time getting married. Before the ink had even dried on his divorce papers from Louise, Campbell was already on bended knee. And given what he did next, it seemed like he had perfected his skills at swindling his wives out of their fortunes. Somehow, this marriage would be the most disastrous of all. As an experienced gold-digging, treasure-hunting husband, Ian Campbell had picked up a few tricks. Before he married Wigham, he forged a deed of sales for numerous items in the castle in exchange for Wigham's money. Just by saying "I do," he had secured the fortune he needed to repair his castle. In addition to swindling her out of her fortune, Campbell also kept a close eye on his new wife. In a wildly invasive move, he wiretapped her car. Of course, apart from some engine noise, he didn't hear much. It's not entirely clear why he did it, but it might have had something to do with Wigham's past. Wigham was no saint herself. Campbell might have felt he needed to protect himself from her. Wiggum had suffered a terrible 40-foot fall down an elevator shaft in 1943 during her first marriage. She endured horrific and life-altering injuries, including a particularly hard hit to the head. When she recovered, those who knew her noticed something had changed. Allegedly, Wiggum's head injury made her a raging nymphomaniac. Campbell had every reason to suspect that Wiggum was, shall we say, not in control of her baser impulses. Allegedly, the socialite turned nymphomaniac carried on 88 affairs during her marriage to Campbell. While that number might have been a slight exaggeration on Campbell's part, it was a lot closer to the truth than you'd think. Campbell wasn't the only one forging documents in his marriage to Wiggum. The former socialite had a few tricks up her sleeve as well. She created fake letters that cast doubt on the legitimacy of Campbell's 2 sons with his second wife, Louise. Forgery and fraud apparently is a game for two, and Wiggum was a professional. Ian Campbell had planned on milking Wiggum for all she was worth, but clearly he had bitten off more than he could chew. After discrediting Campbell's 2 legitimate sons, Wiggum attempted to acquire a newborn baby. Yes, that's as messed up as it sounds. She was intending to pass off the innocent babe as hers and Wiggum's child, thus the rightful heir to the castle. It didn't take Campbell long to learn that he was no match for the cunning of his new wife. Out of his depth, he had to find a way out of the marriage, and he had to do it fast or she might just swindle him out of his castle and his buried treasure. When Wiggum went on a trip to New York, Campbell saw the opportunity that he needed. Campbell set his plan into motion. He hired a locksmith to break into a cupboard at their Upper Grosvenor Street home. If he was hoping to find his lost treasure or Wiggum's confession to her schemes, he was sorely mistaken. He did, however, manage to find one of the biggest scandals in British history. Ian Campbell and his locksmith uncovered exactly what he hoped they would: a reason to divorce Wiggum. In the locked cupboard, the Duke of Argyll discovered a treasure trove of scandals. Campbell found several Polaroid photographs that would ignite the tabloids. Let's just say that they were not safe for work. Though all the Polaroids that Campbell found were scandalous, some of them were truly jaw-dropping. One of the photographs captured his wife Wiggum wearing nothing at all but her customary 3-strand pearl necklace. The real kicker was that she was with a man in the photograph, and it wasn't Campbell. And that was just the first one. Another one of the scandalous Polaroids became something of a national mystery. The photograph depicted Wiggum performing an oral favor on a gentleman. The photograph didn't show a face, but no one was thinking that the headless man was Ian Campbell. The speculation surrounding his identity consumed the press. The mystery of the identity of the headless man outlived Campbell and Wiggum's marriage. The going theories were that Campbell owed his scandalous divorce to Duncan Sandys, Winston Churchill's future son-in-law, or even more salaciously, to a member of the royal family, namely Prince George, Duke of Kent. Either way, the scandal endured. Wiggum countered Campbell's allegations with accusations of her own. The now disgraced Duchess of Argyll claimed that Campbell had carried on an affair with her stepmother, Jane Corby Wiggum. But unlike Campbell, she didn't have countless salacious photos to prove it. And no one believed her stories after her racy photos came to light. During their divorce proceedings in 1963, Campbell provided the court with all of the photographs that he had found. The judge was so appalled by the pictures of Wiggum's exploits that he claimed she was a completely promiscuous woman whose carnal appetite could only be satisfied with a number of men. Well, not any number. 88 allegedly. For once, Ian Campbell looked like the innocent party in his marriage, or at least the not-so-guilty party. During the divorce proceedings, the judge went on to say about Wiggum that her attitude to the sanctity of marriage was what moderns would call enlightened, but which in plain language was wholly immoral. Unsurprisingly, Campbell won his highly publicized divorce case. Wiggum's romantic escapades caused such a stir that almost everyone forgot that Campbell was no saint himself. Maybe because of the stresses of his divorce, or maybe because of his years as a prisoner, Campbell developed a Dramamine addiction. It clearly impaired his judgment. Ian Campbell's substance use issues caused his already poor behavior to become even worse, if that's even possible. During the divorce proceedings, there's no evidence that Wigham brought up Campbell's physical aggression towards her or his habit of spending her money, which is very surprising. But most importantly, his own lustful behavior never came up. And he had some truly lustful behavior even more to come.
For exclusive perks like early access to new videos, priority replies to your comments, and to have your say on future content, consider becoming a Factinate member. On top of that, your support helps keep the channel going. Click the link in the description for more details.
Shortly after his divorce from Wigham, Ian Campbell met Matilda Coster Mortimer. Even though Wigham was a nymphomaniac, it turns out that Campbell was the one with the broken moral compass. His relationship with Mortimer crossed all kinds of moral boundaries. Campbell met Mortimer in Scotland, a short time after he finalized his divorce from Wigham, and they immediately hit it off. But oddly, she wasn't the first member of the Mortimer family that Campbell had liaisons with. In the 1920s, Campbell had carried on an affair with Mortimer's mother. That should have been a warning. Despite the obvious ick factor, the intergenerational couple continued dating. Even though Campbell could have been Mortimer's biological father, it took them less than a year to seal the deal. They got married in 1963. But Campbell must have been eager to avoid another tabloid headline-grabbing scandal, or at least he tried to. The last thing Ian Campbell needed was another scandal. So they skipped out on the ceremony and got married at a registry office in West Sussex. Campbell and Mortimer lived together in France after their quiet nuptials. By all accounts, Campbell had given up diving for buried treasure in Tobermory Bay. But all good things come to an end. After 10 years of substance use and hard living, Campbell fell terribly ill and returned to Edinburgh. After a short stay in a nursing home, he passed away quietly. The money-hungry 11th Duke of Argyll never found his pot of gold. And we're not just referring to the Spanish galleon at the bottom of Tobermory Bay. Even though he had managed to restore Inverary Castle, he had had to sell nearly 30,000 acres of land. He also opened the doors of the castle to tourists so they could take a peek at his scandalous life. What was once a symbol of power became just a tourist attraction, all in an attempt to recoup what he had lost. Even in the end, his life ended up being a public spectacle, and most importantly, all about money. In the end, the last thing Ian Campbell had to sell was his notorious reputation, and he sold it just like everything else. If you enjoyed this Factinate video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more incredible stories. Want a say in who we cover next? Join our membership program through the link in the description for exclusive perks. Your support means everything to us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.